like I said before, a lot of it was trying to make the road easier for someone else who's coming behind me, right? So that they don't have to spend hours and hours, on Instagram, going through their algorithms, trying to DM people who might not respond.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the LowCode Podcast. Today we have Yinka Johnson today with us. She's the founder of African Ever After, which is a pretty cool directory app for African-themed weddings. We built an app for her a few months ago, and she has been growing the database of vendors that are in the app and getting users. So the goal of today's podcast is that she can explain or tell us how she has been getting users and growing this business of hers. Yinka, welcome to the app. How are you today?
Fine. How are you?
Great. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and then how you came up with this idea of the app?
Whenever I talk about Africa Ever After, I always start with I have very little official experience in the wedding industry.
Okay.
I grew up in the U.S. In a very vibrant community of Sierra Leoneans and West Africans. So a lot of my early exposure to weddings was, through our culture, weddings in the community, which I always loved. And I love participating in, and I loved attending and everything, all of the cultural aspects about weddings. So
what is unique about West African weddings compared to, let's say, traditional American weddings?
Well, there are multiple days. Okay. Sometimes they can go on for longer than that. There are a lot of pieces. I mean, they're so much fun. They're colorful, and the cultural traditions that you might not see day to day, especially if you don't live in the country, you see them on full display there. So I mean, it's wonderful. It's like weddings are an opportunity to immerse yourself in your own culture, which is of great value to someone who didn't grow up there. So yeah, it's amazing. So I was always drawn to it, and this lasted all the way through my adulthood, obviously till now. So the reason why I came up with this idea was, I think a few years ago, in 2017 or so, I just, I had the idea. I just finished helping to plan my cousin's wedding. And, my brother at the time was engaged to my sister-in-law, my current sister-in-law. And we were working with a vendor who is tremendous. She's Nigerian. But I just remember kind of the complications there were to find certain vendors who could do certain things, from a cultural aspect. That was successful in a large part because of the wedding vendor that we had, who had that cultural expertise. And soon after, I got engaged, and we started doing it all over again, and those challenges still existed, right? So looking for someone. We got married in Nashville, so it's obviously there's a West African community there, but it might not be as large as in somewhere like Dallas or Houston or Atlanta. So to find someone who had the expertise to do the head ties, right, that we do for our weddings, and to sew clothes, for instance, or to cater, for instance, all of those things that kind of make an African wedding successful. We were looking for people to do that. And obviously we had luck because I had the same wedding planner that my brother did, and she was tremendous. But I also had other needs that, we were looking for people who could fulfill those. So I guess the idea for Africa Ever After was always there, but eventually I just decided to execute on it and kind of make that process, the wedding and just general event planning process, easier for those who would plan events like that in the future.
So how do these vendors? So at the end, you ended up finding the vendors that could provide the services that you're looking for.
Right.
How do they advertise? Like, are they? Do you find them on the Yellow pages, or how are they?
No.
What marketing do they do, or they don't do any at all?
It's funny. A lot of times it's word of mouth. And that was really
Okay.
like the older way of doing things. I mean, going to events in the 90s and early 2000s, it's like, who do you know who cooks this? Who do you know who does that?
Mm,
And oftentimes it's someone in the community. Now it's not, it is word of mouth as well, but it's also social media, right? And
okay.
not even all vendors have social media, but I would say that for my brother's wedding and for my wedding, I became a professional Instagram sleuth. I mean, I knew exactly, to find someone who did a particular thing, I would use hashtags and see if I could find someone. And then I'd make a call. Do you know someone who does this in Nashville? Do you know someone who does this here? Do you know someone who does this there? So it's definitely easier now, but there's still like, Yellow pages is not it. Like Instagram in a lot of ways is the Yellow pages of today. You just have to know,
Right.
what you're looking for. So that was how I found vendors. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you had these. I don't want to say problem, but this issue with your wedding and your brothers. When the light bulb turned on, and you're like, okay, this is something, like this is a business idea. Like I can convert this need that I had into a product.
At what point?
Yeah.
Uh,
When did that happen?
oh man. Well, I would say my husband even before he became my husband, he was always like, you need to do something with this. So I got
Mm,
a lot of encouragement from him. He's
okay.
a lot more business minded than me, I would say. But he encouraged me. And so I would say that in terms of execution, like I'm actually going to sit down and write out a business plan and, put money towards this and find people to help me execute on it. It was in 2020 during the pandemic, I would say in the summer. At the time, I was on parental leave. Um, and I just remember thinking to myself, you know, I just, if I don't do it now, then what? I wasn't really,
Mm-hmm.
no one was really going anywhere. No one was, yeah, I did have a brand new baby, but, I had help as well. But I said, if something just told me, if not now, then I don't know if I'll actually do this. So I made a commitment to myself to move ahead full throttle for a year and see how I felt in a year. And see if it's something that I still wanted to do. And that's exactly what I did. And I just hit a year about a month
Mm,
ago and it's still going. So yeah,
right.
yeah.
Now, why did you decide to build an app? And I don't know, why didn't you become a uh, wedding planner?
I admire wedding planners. I don't think I could do it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I didn't want to become a wedding planner because
Okay.
I don't know if I have afforded to do that. Shout out to all the wedding planners. I admire you, but I don't think that's for me. As much as I love it, there's so many moving parts and,
Okay.
I don't, that's just, one has to be realistic about their own limitations and their
Right.
own skills.
Right. Right.
And I was, as much as I love weddings, I'll help, but I'm not going to be a wedding planner full time. Um, but I think that for me, doing this, like I said before, a lot of it was trying to make the road easier for someone else who's coming behind me, right? So that they don't have to spend hours and hours, on Instagram, going through their algorithms, trying to DM people who might not respond, wasting time, right? And also so they don't necessarily have to rely on word of mouth. Obviously, that'll always be a critical part of any type of a setup like this. But for me, it was just a matter of making the road easier for someone else. And I felt like this was the best way to do it. I felt like for planning my wedding, my brother's wedding, and other of my relatives and friends' weddings. Those are challenging parts of it. So I said, I think this is a way that I can kind of help. That would also be like a great business.
Cool. And then, okay, so you came up with the idea, you decided to build a product, an app. And if I remember correctly, you start talking with developers, right? And they quoted like crazy amount of money. And then you're like,
Yes,
this doesn't work.
Yeah. So I guess initially I was thinking something. Like I said, I have no background in this business. I just know the big players that I was using during my wedding, which was Wedding Wire and The Knot. And so initially when I decided to build this, I said, I found someone local who has their own web app building agency. And I went to them and I said, look, this is something that I want to do, a directory kind of thing. And he told me that it was a great idea, but what I was looking at was, it could be even up to six figures with what I was, my vision. And I didn't obviously I didn't have the money to put towards that. And, I thought about for a second, maybe crowdfunding, but I said, I think it's a bit too early for that. I don't want to do that just yet. So he directed me to, no code or like no low code apps. And that's what directed me to Glide Apps. And when I went to the Glide Apps app, there's a section there that has, I guess, affiliates, like official affiliates of Glide Apps.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, experts. Exactly. And that's how I found low code.
Right. What do you think were the trade-offs of building an app with no code compared to whatever solution they were proposing with code for six figures?
Honestly, I haven't seen one yet. This has worked perfectly for me and what I want.
Okay.
It's not to say, maybe if I get to the point where I do have, 500,000 vendors, maybe that'll be the point where I'm like, okay, this trade-off is evident. But based on what I wanted the app to be, wanted the site to be, Low Code has built exactly what I need it to be. It has the functionalities that I need. A person can sign up as a vendor or a client and basically create a profile of their business and or search through other businesses, pictures, contact information, location, map. They can contact them directly through the app. They can chat with them. They can favorite vendors, and it has exactly what I need. So as far as a trade-off, I think I'm pretty good now.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yes.
Now, so how are you in an app like yours that is like a marketplace? You need two types of users, right? Like end users, brides, or people getting married, and vendors. How do you get those two different types of users? Because I assume or I expect that strategy is different getting vendors than getting end users. So what have you done? What has worked? What hasn't worked in terms of getting people using your app?
So I have I guess a theory I got from a movie from a while ago, which is if you build it, they will come. So my focus for now has been to get vendors. And the more vendors that are on there, the more people will go in and say, oh, look at these vendors, a lot of whom are in my area. Let me, tell my friend about this. Let me tell my mom about this. Let me tell my sister. Let me tell my brother. So my focus, I have people who are clients who are signed up for it, but I have just as many, maybe even more vendors at the moment. And right now,
did you start working with vendors in like local vendors or throughout the whole country?
All throughout the country.
Okay.
Throughout the country. Yeah. So I look for certain qualities in vendors. I've gone back to my Instagram sleuthing days because that's the most effective. And that's also gives me an opportunity to see their work and how responsive they are. Right. So I reach out to vendors and I say, hey, I love your work. I have this project called Africa Ever After. And I ask them if I can call them. A lot of times I do end up speaking with them on the phone and telling them what we're all about. And I don't I mean, the vast majority, I would say 99% are like, yeah, sign me up. And so that's how I've been able to build it very organically, really through cold calling. So
Wow.
yeah,
How many
yeah.
vendors do you have in the app?
Right now, I think it's about 35 vendors all
Okay.
over the country. And I believe we have one in Nigeria, and I really want to expand the vendor base, not just in the US and Canada and the diaspora, but also on the African continent as well. So yeah. So it's growing.
Have you done, so you have been focusing on getting vendors.
Mhm.
What do you think will be the strategy to get in users? Do you plan to run ads or like word of
Yes,
mouth or?
yes, both. I
Okay.
guess right now I've been relying on word of mouth as far as clients are concerned, people who are looking for vendors. But eventually, yes, once I hit a critical mass of vendors, then I'll start doing ads in social media spaces like
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, Facebook, but also Google ads as well. So that's the current strategy right now.
And what is the monetization strategy? How are you going to make money? Who's going to pay?
Mhm.
Are the vendors going to pay to be in the app, or the end user is going to pay to access the database?
Right now, it's free for clients and vendors. We haven't. It's not that I don't intend to make money from it, but I don't intend to make money as the strategy is right now from the vendors or the clients. So this might be at one point, maybe I'll have if once I get enough eyeballs, maybe selling ad space,
Mm,
which would be separate from, the ability to, sign in and create a profile, right? So
right.
this will be
Okay.
more like ad driven. Yeah, but to sign up for a client or a vendor is absolutely free.
How do you see the industry? Do you think that this, like, what would be your goal? Getting 100,000 users or selling the app to a larger entity like the Knot, or where you see like this project in 5 years?
Definitely, I would like to think of it like this. Anyone who is an African wedding vendor or who has experience with African weddings, because those people are not exclusively African, I would like them to say, in order to reach this particular market, I want to, or I need to be a part of the Africa Ever After directory.
Mm,
That is my goal. So that
okay.
in the same way that people think about the Knot and the Wedding Wire for American Canadian weddings, um, I want them to think about Africa Ever After. Like they want to be listed, right?
Right.
As far as down the road, I mean, anything is possible. As of right now, I still think of this project as my baby. So the idea of
Okay.
selling it, I don't know. We'll see
Okay.
what makes sense in the future. But right now, I'm just focused on having, creating a marketplace that will provide benefit and make planning these kinds of events much easier for Africans and people planning the weddings.
Do you think that eventually, because this app, I mean, imagine this app for Indian weddings or for, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
Mexican weddings, right? So do
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you, like, obviously your app is for African weddings, but do
Mm-hmm.
you plan to white label the app? Have you thought about that? Like white labeling the app and then using the same structure, the same logic, the same app, but for Indian, like a directory of Indian vendors or Mexican or something like that? Or
Yeah,
you think,
I think that that's a possibility. I think that once I've spent some time building this out, then the road to building out something similar would be even more clear, in the
mhm,
future. But that's definitely a possibility because these issues are not just exclusive to African weddings, right?
correct, exactly.
There are a lot of places, venues, caterers, who specialize, from a cultural aspect in Indian weddings, Mexican weddings, Caribbean weddings, all
Yeah.
kinds of weddings, right? So I do think that this could be a template for those in the future. So I
Correct.
definitely thought about that. Yeah.
And what do you think about, so right now, the vendors, the wedding vendors, you have been reaching out to them and calling them and seeing their Instagram. Do you think that they are ready for like the technological revolution that's happening right now? Are they, or are they stuck in the past? Because I mean, some of them have Instagram. You mentioned earlier that some don't even answer
Mm-hmm.
the DMs,
Mm-hmm.
and now either like in the States, you are in the Knot, you are in Wedding Wire, you are in Instagram, or people won't find you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How modernized you think they are as an industry?
That's a really good question, and I think that it varies. I found that the younger the proprietor of the business is, the younger the vendor is, the higher the likelihood that they're using social media to their advantage, right? But the more established, I mean, you have some places who are like restaurants that cater for events that they have steady business, but there's really no trace of them on social
Mm,
media. The only place that you can really find them is through, if you Google like, you know African restaurant in X city, right? And then you call
right.
them and then you'll see, and then it takes a little bit more time to explain to them what you're trying to do, and how this could be helpful to them, but they're not struggling for business in the least bit, right? So I think it
Right.
really varies. It really varies. So I guess in one sense, yes, it's challenging, but in the other sense, it's not. So I think that no matter what, I feel like if you prove yourself, right, as a benefit to the vendor's business, then they will catch up, if you will, in terms of the technological revolution.
Right,
Once
because
you
right now
once
they
you
just
show
have to
you can
sign
provide.
up.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just have to sign up. And if they don't know how to do it, they can get someone who's in their staff who knows how to do it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that it is a challenge in some ways because some people just don't understand the concept of, you know, a wedding vendor directory online, the app, and all that. Some
Okay.
people, I explain it, they get it. They're like, "Yeah, sign me up." It's like 2 second conversation. Other, they're like,
Right.
"Oh, I
Right.
don't know. Like, what does it entail? Does it this? Does it that?" And I get it, right? Sometimes these things are foreign. When you have a successful business and you haven't needed other things, like why rock the boat, right, with something that might not be fully clear to you? So as the owner of Africa Ever After, I have to make sure that whatever I'm saying to them, I'm conveying how it can be beneficial towards them. I can't just throw kind of like a whole bunch of technological jargon and expect that oh, they're gonna go, okay, yeah, no, like you have to be able to attune the message to your audience, which is
Right.
something that yeah, been doing.
And do you think that these vendors, do they have listings in a lot of directories like yours? I mean, not as specific as directories for African weddings, but other than the not and the traditional ones, do these vendors like keep their profiles updated, or that's not something that happens a lot in the industry?
Um, I would say that, let me speak for the vendors that I do have listed. The vast
Mm-hmm.
majority are not in Wedding Wire or the Knot. The vast
Okay.
majority,
Oh, okay.
but they
Why is
have
that?
I don't, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't make sense given the cost of being a vendor in these. I'm not
Okay.
absolutely sure. The venues do tend to be, because venues are kind of different in that they're not. You should have experience in having African events, but
Okay.
venues you're more likely to find venues, but like
Right.
tailors and designers, they tend not to be, right? But a lot of times they have massive social media followings, like 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 Instagram
Wow.
followers. Oh yeah. So I mean, it goes to show that the Knot and Wedding Wire, from the perspective of these vendors, is not the end all be all of the
Mm-hmm.
eyeballs that they can get on their business.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's riches are in the niches. So
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's always interesting. I always
Yeah.
like very niche apps because they tend to do better than generic or general apps. So that's
Yeah.
something that yours
Yeah.
is very unique, and I think
Yeah.
that's where the value is at. Because if you're looking for an African wedding, like you rather look in your app that you have the list of vendors rather than spending like you did hours on Instagram or the not trying to find the right vendor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I definitely, when I was planning my wedding, I did sign up for the Knot and Wedding Wire. And then when you try to find someone who has the cultural expertise, like you might go from 100 options to maybe two, depending on what you're looking for. And it's not that these businesses are not out there, they're just not listed in this particular space. So I'm trying to solve that for other people. Like, where's the space you can go to find the people who can provide this service for your event?
That is great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Where can people find more about your app, your business?
Yeah, you can go to www.africaeverafter.com. And there are links to the directory there, but if you want to go straight to the directory, it's directory.africaeverafter.com. And, you would sign in and you can see the vendors and the setup. And and you can reach out to us at any time if you have any questions or comments, or even if you do know anyone who wants to be a part of it as a vendor. Yeah.
That is great. Effie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jesus. Good talking to you. Bye.